Welcome! Unit 5, Day 5 notes involving factoring trinomials. So if you recall, we're dealing with polynomials and factoring them. This time we're going to be factoring trinomials. So a trinomial is a polynomial with three terms. We factor a trinomial differently than we do a binomial or a polynomial with four terms. When we are given a trinomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, we can factor it using the big X method. So first, recall that if we have something like x plus 5 times the quantity of x plus 2, we would FOIL. So essentially, I would be using the distributive property. So we'll multiply the first term, so x times x is x squared. And then we're going to multiply the first and the outer term, so x times 2 is 2x. Then we'll multiply the outer term, so positive 5 times x, that's 5x. And then lastly, we'll multiply the 5 and the 2, which will give us 10. And then we'll combine the like terms here, and you'll get x squared plus 7x plus 10. So again, this is where we are going forward. But how we undo this is by factoring, using the big X method. So how we're going to do this is we draw an X on our paper, and we're going to multiply the A term and the C term up top. So I'll write A times C, and then below the X, that's going to be our B value. So what are the A, B, and C values? Well, if we look at the trinomial that we have here, x squared plus 7x plus 10, what we need to do is look at the coefficients. So in this case, there is an invisible 1 in front of the x squared. That 1 is our A value. And then that positive 7 in front of the x is going to be our B value. And then lastly, that positive 10, that constant, that number without a variable next to it, is going to be our C value. So the first trinomials we will factor are the easier ones. This happens when A is equal to 1. So in this case, if we look over here, yes, our trinomial has an A value of 1. So we're going to factor this, and how we're going to do this, again, is by using the X method. We multiply the A and the C coefficients together, which in this case is 1 times 10. So 1 times 10 is 10. And then the B value is 7. Now what we're going to do, in these spaces right here, we need to think of two numbers that multiply together. That'll give you 10, but at the same time, will add up to 7, which in this case, I'm thinking 5 and 2. 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 plus 2 is 7. And guess what? We'll write x plus 5 times x plus 2, right? And these two values here are indeed positive, so we're expected to put a plus sign for each of them. So hopefully that makes sense as we're going through these examples here. Let's take a look at number 1. X squared plus 5x plus 6. One thing that I always like to do is figure out what my A, B, and C values are. So here's A, here's B, and here's C. So the A value in this case, of course, is 1. And then our B value is positive 5, and our C value is 6. So to factor this trinomial, I'll draw an X on my paper, and then we're going to multiply the A and the C values together. So in this case, it's 1 times 6. That's 6. And our B value is 5. So now we need to think of two numbers that multiply together that'll give you 6 and add up to 5. So the two numbers that I'm thinking are 2 and 3. because 2 times 3 is 6 and 2 times 3 is 5. So how we should write our answer looks like this. It's x plus 2 times the quantity of x plus 3. Number 2, we have x squared minus 8x plus 7. So our a is 1, our b is negative 8, and our c is 7. So a, b, and c. I'll draw an x on my paper. We multiply the a and the c values together, so 1 times 7, that's 7. And our b is negative 8. So what we need to do is think of two numbers that multiply together that'll give you 7, but add up to negative 8. The two numbers that I'm thinking are 1 and 7. Now look, 1 times 7 is indeed 7, but 1 plus 7 is not negative 8. So what we need to do here is we look at these two values, our 1 and 7, and make them both negative. Now if we start over, negative 1 times negative 7 is going to give you a positive 7, and negative 1 plus negative 7 is going to give you negative 8. So if you start negative and add negatives, the result is going to give you a negative. So our answer is x minus 1 times the quantity of x minus 7. Number 3, we have x squared minus 2x minus 3. So a is 1, b is negative 2, and c is negative 3. So I'll draw an x on my paper. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, and our b is negative 2. So we'll think of the two numbers that multiply together to give you negative 3, but add up to negative 2. So I'm thinking negative 3 and 1. So negative 3 times 1, of course, is negative 3. But if you add these two values together, negative 3 plus 1, that's negative 2. So x minus 3 times x plus 1. Number 4, x squared minus 11x plus 10. So the a value is 1, our b is negative 11, and our c is positive 10. So I'll draw an x. 1 times 10, that's 10, and then our b is negative 11. The two numbers that I'm thinking are 1 and 10. Yes, 1 times 10 is 10, but 1 plus 10 is not negative 11, so we need to make these two values negative. So negative 1 plus negative 10 is negative 11, so x minus 1 times the quantity of x minus 10. Number 5, so our a is 1, our b is negative 1, and our c is negative 20. So a is 1, b is negative 1, and c is negative 20. So a times c is negative 20, and b is negative 1. So the numbers I'm thinking are 5 and 4, where the 5 is actually negative. So negative 5 times 4 is negative 20, and negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. So x minus 5 times the quantity of x plus 4. Number 6, x squared minus 10x minus 24. So a is 1, b is negative 10, and c is negative 24. So a times c, or 1 times negative 24, is negative 24, and our b is negative 10. So the two numbers that I'm thinking are 12 and 2. So one of these values must be negative. And I think that 12 should be negative because negative 12 times 2 is negative 24. But if you add these two numbers, negative 12 plus 2, that gets you negative 10. So your answer is x minus 12 times x plus 2. Now, what happens when a is not 1? So in order to factor a trinomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, when a is not 1, we're going to change the polynomial so that it has 4 terms. We can then factor the polynomial by grouping. So what this means is that we can use something called the split the middle method, where we're going to look at the b value and split it into 2 terms. You can use that method, or you can use another method called the swing method, which I will discuss later in the notes video. But let's take a look at number 7. We have 5x squared minus 13x plus 6. Now, before we do anything, we always check if we can factor this by using the greatest common factor. So is there a GCF between 5x squared, negative 13x, and 6? No. So I'll write, is there a GCF? No. Okay, so notice that our trinomial has an a value of 5. It's not 1, right? So a is 5, b is negative 13, and c is positive 6. Again, what we're trying to do here is we're going to split the middle. We are going to split the negative 13x into 2 terms. But we're still going to use the x method. So I'll draw an x on my paper. And up top, remember, the a and the c will get multiplied together. So the a value is 5, the c is 6. 5 times 6 is 30. And then our b value is negative 13. So what are the two numbers that multiply together that'll give you positive 30 and add up to negative 13? And the two numbers that I'm thinking are negative 10 and negative 3. So here, this is how I'm going to split the middle. We're going to keep the 5x squared, so 5x squared, and then that negative 13x is going to get split into 2 terms. What are those 2 terms? The 2 terms that you figured out when dealing with the x method, right? That negative 10 and that negative 3. So I'll put negative 10 or minus 10 and then minus 3 here. But remember, there's an x in negative 13x. Negative 10 minus 3 is not going to give you negative 13x. So what do we have to do? Well, since it's a negative 13x, this term and this term need an x, right? So I'll put x here and an x there. And then our c doesn't change at all, so we're still going to have that plus 6. Okay? So it's 5x squared minus 10x minus 3x plus 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Since we have 4 terms, we can actually factor this by grouping. Meaning we'll group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. So as we factor by grouping, we look at the first 2 terms and determine what the GCF of the 2 numbers is. And the GCF of the 2 is 5x. And for the last 2 terms, the GCF is a negative 3. And since there's a negative in front of the 3 of the last 2 terms, you need to make sure that you factor the negative out. So, remember, it's the GCF first, and then the remainder. So 5x times what number gives you 5x squared, and that would be x. 5x times what gives you negative 10x, that would be negative 2. And then over here, the GCF of the last two terms is negative 3. And then there's my remainder, negative 3 times what gives you negative 3x. That's x. Negative 3 times what gives you positive 6. That would be negative 2. So here we have common polynomials. Therefore, we can factor the x minus 2 out. And then we'll multiply that by our remainder. The leftovers are 5x minus 3. So therefore, this is our answer. X minus 2 times the quantity of 5x minus 3. So number 7, I was demonstrating the split the middle method. Okay? Remember, we always need to check for the greatest common factor before we do anything else. So let's take a look at number 8, 3x squared minus 22x plus 7. Is there a GCF of the 3? No. So let's label our A, B, and C. So A is 3, B is negative 22, and C is positive 7. We'll use the X method again. We're going to multiply the A and the C together. So A and C are 3 and 7 respectively. So 3 times 7, that's 21. And our B value is negative 22. So what are the two numbers that multiply together? That'll give you 21 and add up to negative 22. I'm thinking negative 21 and negative 1. So we're going to split the negative 22 into two terms. But we're going to keep the 3x squared and the positive 7. But in the middle, we should have negative 21x and negative 1x. So, since we have 4 terms, we'll group the first two terms and the last two terms. The GCF of the first group is 3x. And the GCF of the last two terms should be negative 1. Alright, remember we need to factor the negative out. And the only number that goes into negative 1x and 7 at the same time is negative 1. Okay? Alright, so 3x times x minus 7 and negative 1 times x minus 7. Then we'll factor the x minus 7 out. And our leftovers are 3x minus 1. Alright, so let's take a look at number 9. We have 2x squared minus 3x minus 20. I don't see a GCF, so I'll write no GCF. I'll label my A, B, and C. So A is 2, B is negative 3, and C is negative 20. Now, what we're going to do is draw an X on our paper. A times C goes up top, B down below. 2 times negative 20 is negative 40, and our B value is negative 3. So the two numbers are positive 5 and negative 8. So we have 2x squared plus 5x minus 8x minus 20. And then we're going to group the first two and the last two. The GCF of the first two is just x. And the GCF of the last two is negative 4, right? Yes, negative 2 is a factor, but remember you want the greatest common factor, meaning what is the largest number that goes into negative 8x and negative 20 at the same time, and that would be negative 4. Alright, so x times the quantity of 2x plus 5 times negative 4 times the quantity of 2x plus 5. And then we'll factor again. We're going to factor the 2x plus 5 out. And this is your answer. 2x plus 5 times the quantity of x minus 4. These three problems that we just did was just me using the split the middle method. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to do the swing method. But first, I want to revisit number 9. and I'm going to show you how to use the swing method. Let's stick with the basics first, and then we'll work our way up, because in the next few problems that we're going to be doing, we need to factor the GCF out first. Okay, so let's stick with number 9. We have 2x squared minus 3x minus 20 again. Remember, our a, b, and c are 2, -3, and -20 respectively. We are still going to use the x method. So a times c, that's -40, and our b was -3. And the two numbers were +5 and -8. Alright? So, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write x plus 5 times the quantity of x minus 8. Okay, so very, very similar to what we did at the beginning, right, of the first 6 problems of the notes. So, x plus 5 times quantity of x minus 8. Now, if I were to FOIL this, you will not get 2x squared minus 3x minus 20. Notice that the a value is not 1. It's that +2. What we're going to do with that +2 is that we're going to divide this number by our a value, which is 2. And we're going to do the same thing with this number. We're going to divide that by 2. I'm going to look at this first, that x minus 8 divided by 2. Now, does this 2 go into 8 evenly? And if so, how many times? Well, -8 divided by 2 is 4. So 2 goes into -8 4 times. So that would be x minus 4. And then over here, we have x plus 5 divided by 2. Does 2 go into 5 evenly? No. So this is where the swinging happens. So that 2 goes right in front of the x. That's me swinging the 2. So this is going to be 2x plus 5. And 2x plus 5 times the quantity of x minus 4 was the answer that I put when we split the middle. So again, you can use whatever method you like. The power is yours. If the split the middle method makes sense to you, use it. If you find the swing method faster, use it. Again, totally up to you. I love using the swing method because it is to the point. Okay, so let's do number 10. Let's not be antsy and just jump right into one of the methods. We need to factor by the GCF if there's any. So, is there a GCF between 3x squared and +3x and -36? Yes, the GCF is 3, so we have 3 times the quantity of x squared plus x minus 12. Okay? So, where do I use the x method this time? Because we factored using the GCF. We're going to apply the x method here because that's our remainder. So, we will label our a, b, and c. So the a is 1, the b is also 1, and our c is -12. So here's the x method. And then our two numbers, a and c, that's 1 times -12. And our b is 1. So the two numbers are 4 and -3. Now, do I split or do I swing in this case? No, because a is 1. The swinging and the splitting methods work when a is not 1. So we don't need to use any of those methods. So our answer is 3 times the quantity of x plus 4 times the quantity of x minus 3. The steps were basically the same as we did for numbers 1 to 6. Let's take a look at number 11. We have 4x squared minus 14x minus 30. Is there a GCF of the 3? Yes, it is 2. I thought I would say 4, but 4 doesn't go into negative 30 at all. So the largest number that goes into these 3 terms is 2. So I'll write 2 times my remainder. 2 times what gives you all of these things. It would be 2x squared minus 7x minus 15. And then we're going to look at the remainder and factor that. So the A is 2, the B is negative 7, and the C is negative 15. We're going to use the x method. So 2 times negative 15 is negative 30, and our B value is negative 7. So what are the two numbers? I would say positive 3 and negative 10. So let's drop down the 2. And I'm going to draw my parentheses out. We're going to use the swing method again. So it's x plus 3 and x minus 10. Now don't forget, the A value is 2. So I need to divide this 3 by 2 and this negative 10 by 2. So I notice that the 2 goes into negative 10 just fine, so that's just going to be x minus 5, but 2 doesn't go into 3 at all. So what are we going to do? We're going to swing it. So this is 2x plus 3, but don't forget we factored out the 2. So the 2 needs to be part of our answer. Your answer is 2 times the quantity of 2x plus 3 times the quantity of x minus 5. Alright, so number 12, we have 18x squared plus 6x minus 4. Let's take out a GCF first. The GCF is 2. So it's 2 times 9x squared plus 3x minus 2. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply the x method here. It's a times c, right? So the a is 9, b is positive 3, and c is negative 2. So I need to multiply the 9 and the negative 2 together, which will give me negative 18. And then the b value is positive 3. So what are the two numbers that multiply? That'll get you negative 18 and add to 3. I'm thinking negative 3 and positive 6. So let's write 2, because we had that as our GCF. So it's 2 times the quantity of x minus 3 times the quantity of x plus 6. But don't forget, our a value is not 1, it's 9. So we need to divide the negative 3 by 9 and the positive 6 by 9. Before we do anything, I notice that looking at this first fraction here, that negative 3 divided by 9, or negative 3 over 9, that can be reduced, okay? And this is a very important step when you're doing the swing method. So if you see a fraction and it can be easily reduced, you have to do that step before you apply the swing method, okay? So we're going to divide this negative 3 by 3, and we're going to divide this 9 by 3. So it's 2 times the quantity of x minus 1 over 3. And then over here, that x plus 6 over 9, yes, we have to reduce that fraction, and that is easily reducible because we can divide this by 3 and that by 3. So that will give us x plus 2/3. Now, if we look over here, if we look at this factor, 3 doesn't go into 1. So what do we have to do? We need to swing it. So we're going to take this 3 and bring it right in front, and we have to do the same thing for this 2/3 because we know that 3 doesn't go into 2 evenly. So we'll swing that too. So our answer is 2 times the quantity of 3x minus 1 times the quantity of 3x plus 2. Very, very important. When you are using the swing method, look at the fractions and see if you can reduce them.